Hey, number ones, welcome to Metatron's Academy. So there is this video that amassed 6.2 million views in, of course, 4 years, but still, it's a viral video and it's produced by Ollie Richards, and as you know, we have reacted to some of his work. Now, what's interesting is that it says how US military linguists learn languages fast. So clearly, I'm interested to see if the techniques that are mentioned are like real, it's something that is tangible, applicable, or if it's the usual stuff that at the end of the day you watch the video and you have learned nothing new. Let's see.
US military linguists are known for being among the fastest language learners in the world, and they need to be good, because in any number of intelligence gathering or hostile situations, knowing a language can save lives. And in the US, military linguists get trained here at the Defense Language Institute, where they use techniques like ISO immersion and scream and scribble to teach foreign languages in incredibly intense programs with some seriously impressive results.
Cool.
Меня зовут сержант Джеймс Кол. Я из штата Теннесси. Я учитель русского языка.
Salam, Halashim Mochitori.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Спасибо большое. До свидания.
Man, I wish it would show someone who speaks Italian because, of course, I can't judge the level of people who speak. What was that? I think the first one was Russian and the second one was like Arabic, I believe. Well, if you speak these languages natively, do let me know if you think that they sound exceptional or if they sound just like any other intermediate student. Now, given pronunciation is not everything, but then again, if you give me 2 sentences, it's not enough for me to assess their level. What else am I going to use?
This is a serious operation, so I tracked down 2 retired soldiers to find out exactly how language learning happened in the military and what lessons you can steal from this for your own language goals. Oh, and stay till the end when I'll show you how you can take a mock entrance exam to see whether you have the brain power to make it onto a military language program.
US
This
Defense.
is the DLI, the Defense Language Institute Foreign Language Center, and it's right here in Monterey, California. It is the biggest, most efficient and effective foreign language institution in the US that trains more than 350,000 students each year, or nearly 4,000 students at any given time. Now, there is also a smaller DLI school in Washington, D.C. that specializes in 65 less commonly taught languages, as well as an English training center at the Air Force Base in Texas. But most of the action takes place in California. Now, to attend, you must be a member of the armed forces or be sponsored by a government agency. So to all of you language dreamers out there, sorry, it probably ain't going to happen. So who makes it to the DLI? Well, let's start with federal employees. That's FBI, DEA, Border Patrol, Coast Guard, and so on. Linguists in these
I wonder if ICE get to be trained in there.
These government agencies do intelligence jobs, and they're mainly jobs that are closer to home, investigating drug trafficking, for example. If you watch TV, I'm sure you will have at least some idea of what these guys do. But the military also trains interpreters that it sends all over the world, and these linguists work to translate highly classified documents and connect with troops and allied forces.
Of course, translating written documents is one thing. Being a simultaneous interpreter is a completely different skill. And in fact, you can be really good at a language and still not exceed at these 2 tasks. Likewise, and that's an important thing that oftentimes people misunderstand, you could be an exceptional translator in the sense that if I give you a book, you will translate it in a way that it's like gorgeous, accurate, well done, you're fast, you're precise, you're accurate, but you're not able to speak or have a conversation. And your pronunciation sucks. So these are very distinct skills. When you specialize extremely into one of these, it's not a good thing to do unless you're doing it for a career, for a job. If it's your job, then great, yeah, do it. Makes you money, fantastic. But as a general language learner, it is usually better to have a balanced level in all the skills, reading, writing, speaking, and listening. And that's the job of trainers and language teachers, to make sure that our students tend to have a balanced level. Of course, each will exceed and excel at whatever naturally is the thing that you excel at. This kind of discrepancy between skills is, it's usually really bad to have unless you have a reason such as a career path.
And of course, on the front line, this ability to communicate can be crucial, and that's where the armed forces come in. Soldiers who may have been deployed to Afghanistan, for example, would have gotten intense language training at the DLI with native Afghan instructors.
Excellent.
Our students initially are Department of Defense service members. They come from all the different branches of the military. As volunteer citizens, a lot of them have recently come from basic training. As military members, they come from throughout the United States, very diverse. We have young service members, but we've also got careerists who return back for advanced language training as well as officers for advanced training.
By the way, if you're new here, welcome. My name is Ollie Richards,
Hi.
and this channel is all about helping you learn a new language and explore the world through the power of story. Now, do you want to see inside the school? Well, I certainly do.
The school.
For 7 hours a day, 5 days a week, young men and women in uniform are hard at work in very intensive language classes. And when they knock off, at the end of the day, they still need to get through 2 or 3 hours of homework and somehow also fit in an hour or two of study time. But that's not all.
Okay, so what do I think about that? 7 hours of intense language training plus a possibly 3 hours of homework. So I know that these numbers may seem impressive, but when it comes to my experience as a language teacher, it really depends on the quality and optimization of those exercises rather than the sheer numbers when it comes to how many hours you put into it. Because at the end of the day, if you spend 8 hours a day doing your exercises, meaning that you write down and give your sentences and little puzzles and you need to move around nouns and adjectives, you're wasting your time. At that point, I would tell you, yeah, maybe do that for an hour, then switch to another exercise, maybe do an hour and watch a movie in the original language with subtitles so that you're also practicing your listening capability. Then after that, maybe you could try and have a conversation for an hour, join a conversation class. Then after that, play a game in the language that you're trying to reach. And then again, when it comes to homework, I guarantee that unfortunately, by the way we are naturally structured in our school, we expect to have to grind for 3 hours of doing all the exercises that are so boring about the grammar. That's not, I mean, I never did any of those, and I reached fluency in several languages. I did a little bit, but nothing that intense. No, you have to, language learning needs to be learned the same way you learn your first language. It counts a lot of hours, clocks in a lot of hours, but a lot of that is passive learning. And you do have to do, so surrounding yourself and immersing yourself in the language is absolutely something that a lot of people that reach fluency do say, because, I mean, yeah, that's the truth. But it shouldn't stress you out. It should not stress you out. If you stress yourself out, you're not going to remember that stuff. It's just not how it works. But I'm not saying that that's what they do. I'm saying it's nice to hear these numbers, but it might not be the most efficient thing to do.
It's the military after all, and soldiers have PT schedules and other duties. Now, as I'm sure you can guess, the school has a reputation for excellence. After all, they've been successfully training soldiers in foreign languages since 1941.
Wow.
Я только что окончил передовицу. Что же в ней? Да, все то же. Ты знаешь, что такое правда. В ней нет известий. А в известиях нет правды, да?
So what languages can soldiers learn here? Well, because it's the Defence Force, the list is very specific. 17 languages and several dialects of those languages are taught.
Let me see. Italian is not there? Come on.
And depending on the difficulty of the language, the courses can last anything from 26 to 64 weeks. And I'll tell you which languages take how long in just a second.
Okay.
I spoke to Elle, whose target language was Korean.
Language program itself is 63 weeks long. And so in that time frame, we cover about 3 years of college level language. So
I think it depends on the college.
by the time we're done in our 63 weeks, then we're pretty fluent in a lot of different areas.
I'm not trying to be annoying here, but fluent depends what you mean by it.
And it moves by really fast at great intensity. There's a saying among students that sums up the experience: drinking from a fire hose. And perhaps unlike a lot of other language courses, the cultural aspect of the language is taken very, very
That's
seriously.
Very good. That's
We
good.
teach language to a very high proficiency level, near native proficiency. And we teach it in a very short period of time. It's a very intense class, very difficult academically. And part of that is to learn about the culture, because you really can't operate at high levels in a language unless you understand the culture. How
I agree with that 1000%.
can you understand the humor, read between the lines, understand current political affairs? What are
Expressions also, perhaps there's something they say and it makes absolutely zero sense unless you understand the roots of that saying.
some of the tensions and challenges in that region politically, geopolitically?
It's essential to know all these things.
The test.
So first things first, if you've been accepted into the military and hope to be a linguist, or if your job requires you to be a linguist, you go to the DLAB. You'll be between the ages of 17 and 35, and most likely from the Army. But you may also be from the Navy, Marine Corps, or Air Force.
Cool.
You may perhaps also be a Green Beret sent here from Fort Bragg for additional language training. But before you get anywhere near the DLI, you first have to take a proficiency test, and it's called the DLAB, the Defense Language Aptitude Battery.
Man, I should try it. Let me know if enough people tell me that you want me to try it in the comments, I might do it.
If you pass, you'll be put in a language category based on how well you did.
Oh, but yeah, probably you can't because I'm not in the army. Or maybe you can find these online and see how you would have fared.
It could be an easier category like French or a more difficult category like Russian. Now this bit is interesting. Even if you already know a language or you've studied it to a decent level before, or even you're fluent in a second language, there's no guarantee that you'll pass the DLAB test.
Really?
Why? Because the test itself doesn't test your ability in a specific language. It tests your brain's ability to learn a new language on the fly.
Interesting.
And it's very clever. The test is based on a made-up language. Well, see, at least you can't cheat.
Talking it over with my recruiter at the time, I took a second battery of tests called the DLAB, which is the Defense Language Aptitude Battery. And that tests your ability to learn languages. So it's all made up language type things that they're asking questions about. And they're looking for pattern recognition.
Okay.
And whether you can work out grammar structures.
Okay, so I appreciate that. I think it's pretty cool. It's interesting that they came up with this. I can see the logical reasons behind it. But then again, I think a background check would also supersede that. Like, you know how he said, oh, you might already know a language, but you might not pass this. But to be honest, in general, I agree with that. I'm not trying to be a contrarian. But if you do have someone who, for instance, by age 22 is already fluent in 4 languages, I would say they could skip the test. That's just me. I'm just trying to be practical here. So maybe if it's someone, like, you need to test it unless there is data that you can analyze to already come to a conclusion without needing to go through the mechanics of the test. That's just, am I saying something silly, or am I making sense?
And word recognition and that sort of thing. And if you have a high enough score in that test, then you qualify for the linguist job.
Interesting, right? The logic of this will become clearer as you watch the rest of the video. And as I mentioned earlier, you can take this entrance test too, even as a civilian. I'll show you how you can do that later.
Cool.
And the other thing that civilians can do is subscribe to this channel. See, it's quite a bit easier than the entrance exam. Just got to click one button.
And remember why you're here, why you're learning a language. You're in the military. You're not here to just pass, get your certificate and your diploma. One day, someone's going to be relying on you and the intelligence you provide to shape their operations.
Yeah, look at that tank. The language.
So you pass the entry test.
Okay.
You're in. What happens next? Well, it's time you met our second soldier, Jack, not his real name, and who has to remain anonymous for this video.
You basically sign up for some kind of language-related job. It varies a little bit branch to branch. You go through your initial basic training, and then while you're in basic training, they give you a dream sheet. And they say, these are all the languages currently being taught. Rank your top 6.
And you don't find out what language you get until the end of basic training. Sometime in the middle, you fill out some paperwork. You explain your language history, what languages you are interested in learning. And they look at those, and then they look at what the Air Force needs, and they assign you.
So,
okay, that makes sense. I'm glad that they don't just assign, but they do at least try to take into consideration your your top 6 picks, because unfortunately, and that's just the way we function as individuals, if you really hate or you are completely indifferent to a language, even if it makes sense to learn it, like imagine that Mandarin, for instance, a language that makes sense to learn for international business and whatever, but let's say that you're not interested, you don't care about it, then it's going to be 10 times harder for you to learn it. Whereas if you study a language that you're incredibly interested in, it will be a lot easier for you to learn. This is something that, of course, there is a certain level of objective difficulty, but subjective difficulty also intertwines with that. And if you're not interested into that language at all, just learning it because you have to, or because you think it's just the most logical things to do for a career path, you will struggle. And I've seen a lot of students just give up. Now, I understand that, of course, if you love a language and they just don't need it, then They don't need it, clearly. But I appreciate that there is a certain consideration to that, and it makes sense.
Hopefully you will be given one of your top 3 choices, but just like the missionaries in Utah, there is no guarantee that you'll get the language that you want. You'll be assigned the language based on 2 things: how well you did on your test and what the Army's current needs are. And those needs obviously change with world events, so they always have to be looked at a few years ahead. Remember, this is not about you. Active service members in particular, they don't get to choose. Jack was hoping to get Russian, but he was actually assigned Farsi. But in a lucky break, he actually ended up suffering a delay, and he ended up getting on the Russian program after all.
Okay.
How about Elle? Did she get what she wanted?
Yes, actually.
Good for her.
Before joining, I had discovered Korean music. And I had really fallen in love with the sound of the language and everything.
Yeah,
and so that was
Korean
on the top of my list. And I was just lucky enough that they needed a Korean linguist. And so that's what I was assigned to.
Good for you.
Nice
good
one,
for
Elle.
you.
Now, here are those language categories from earlier.
Oh.
You'll see here how more familiar languages like French and Spanish are 36 weeks in length, while these category 4 languages like Arabic or Chinese take the whole 64 weeks, almost double the study time.
Yeah, of course, that makes sense. I hadn't noticed that Italian was on the list. So good.
I'll tell you, 64 weeks is intense. I've learned 8 languages, but the longest I've ever done an intensive language project for was 3 months, which I'll link to up here. And I have to say, I was ready to stop after 3 months, and it was nowhere near as intensive as what these guys do, as you'll find out in just a minute. Now, remember, most students arrive with only minimal capabilities in their target.
See, I don't really understand that. He knows more languages than me. I stopped at 7. With that being said, when I picked up English, I didn't do like a 3 months intensive 60 weeks and that kind of stuff. I did a training of a few weeks, in fact. But of course I studied English a little bit at school, but it's not like we didn't really do much. And then I just moved to England and I stayed there for a few years. So it's not like I ever stopped. I just continued, it became part of my life. I didn't have to segregate it into, oh my gosh, I've been doing this for 4 weeks intense, or 6, 8 weeks, 30 weeks, and now I'm tired. There was no, I'm tired. I live in England. I speak English every day, and I'm going to do that for a few years until, although then again, to be fair, I was fluent already after a year, and then it was just a continuous addition. I really don't, does that count? You know what I mean? When I moved to Japan, I was there for 4 years. So, and I spoke Japanese every single day, from morning to evening. Anyways, this is what I wanted to do. I don't want to react to the entire video, just so that you get a few other sections to check out. Since he's the one who made the video, was so successful, let's give him a like. And then if you're interested and you want to see what else he has to say, then feel free to click the link in the description or pinned comment. Thank you to Ollie, and thank to each and every single one of you. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Bye.